we put that together to create a pitch to do season 2, because we've been trying to figure out a way to do season 2. We didn't want to do it in the same way we did it before. But anyway, so My Last Days was...
Good morning, everyone, and happy hump day on this Wednesday, January 14th, 2026. I've got all the news you need for your rush hour commute. And today's episode is a special one because I'm focusing exclusively on the Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni situation. We're taking a break from politics because there's more than enough to unpack here, especially with the leaked deposition that's been making waves. While the release of Baldoni's deposition itself isn't surprising, the truly alarming part is that Blake Lively's attorneys reportedly leaked the home addresses of Baldoni's family. I won't repeat or share that information, and those details have since been sealed, but the damage has already been done. Whether this was a catastrophic mistake or something more intentional, it raises serious questions about how Lively can claim harassment while her legal team exposed the private location of Baldoni's wife and young children, potentially putting them at risk while he's away working and publicly visible. That's a major concern. And if it wasn't accidental, it's even more troubling, though we may never know the truth beyond that. We're diving into some of the wild moments revealed in the deposition, including accusations that Baldoni was catering to a MAGA audience, a claim he reportedly laughed off, and a familiar tactic of trying to weaponize a creator's fanbase by tying it to politics. We also learned that Colleen Hoover, the author of the original book, was allegedly leaking negative information about the film to the press, which adds yet another layer to the controversy. There's an incredible amount to cover, so stay with me. According to So Without a Crystal Ball, the unredacted deposition transcript was leaked by the attorneys for Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, effectively doxing Baldoni and revealing personal identifying information about other parties, which is especially shocking given that just last week Lively and Reynolds argued that unsealing their own texts could endanger their friends. The contradiction is hard to ignore, and some observers are comparing it to intimidation tactics meant to make people think twice before crossing them. Now many are wondering whether this marks the final straw, a sign that they know the case may be slipping away from them. Here we have Colleen Hoover, and we'll dive deeper into her role shortly. But one of the more striking revelations from the deposition is the claim that she was leaking negative information about it ends with us to the media. According to testimony, a Daily Mail reporter allegedly told Melissa Nathan that Colleen Hoover herself had been sharing unfavorable details about the production, which is surprising given that it would seemingly benefit her for the film to succeed. Naturally, this has led to speculation about her motives, whether she was somehow involved in a broader effort to damage Justin Baldoni's reputation, possibly in exchange for a better deal down the line, or whether it was something far less calculated, like enjoying the attention or engaging in unnecessary trash talk. There's no proof either way, but it's undeniably juicy. Another eyebrow-raising moment from the deposition involved Baldoni stating that Blake Lively referred to her penthouse office as Buckingham Palace, a nickname she and Ryan Reynolds allegedly used because of how many celebrities passed through it and because she insisted meetings be held there privately. It's one of those moments that highlights just how detached and eccentric ultra-wealthy celebrity culture can appear to outsiders. Against that backdrop, the situation escalated further due to the doxing incident, prompting a letter to the judge and raising questions about whether Baldoni's legal team could seek sanctions against Lively's side. At this point, however, the damage is already done, and any corrective action feels symbolic at best. Online reaction has been swift and harsh, with many people accusing Lively and Reynolds' camp of using intimidation tactics for a short-term, petty advantage, especially given the risk posed to families and children. Some commenters argue this was a final act of aggression before an anticipated loss in court, suggesting the goal was to inflict maximum psychological harm rather than win on the merits. The idea that Baldoni's family may have recently moved, possibly seeking peace away from the chaos, only adds to the sense of how unsettling the situation has become. Ultimately, it's deeply disturbing to think about families being put at risk in the middle of a Hollywood legal battle, especially in a world where public perception can drive unstable individuals to cross serious lines. It's just wild. And what makes it even crazier is how completely preventable all of this was. Comments online are calling it the biggest legal misstep of the case so far. Even worse than Friedman's satirical but admittedly unhelpful idea of holding a deposition at Madison Square Garden. Some pro-Lively voices are even admitting this was a huge breach of privacy, especially in a case where people closely follow court dockets. It took far too long for the leaked information to be taken down, and Justin Baldoni and his family, who have young children, were put in real danger. The contrast between Lively's high-rise, secure New York penthouse life and Baldoni's more vulnerable situation underscores just how reckless this was. For Baldoni, the priority is simple. He just wants his kids to live a normal, safe life, and this breach thrust them into unnecessary risk. The accusations against Baldoni claiming he catered to MAGA supporters were apparently meant to twist the knife and intimidate him into dropping the lawsuit. But Baldoni, a man of strong faith and composure, handled it calmly. When asked about online claims that he had become a figurehead for the MAGA movement, he laughed them off, noting that he had not observed anything like that himself. He emphasized that Belief in one person shouldn't come at the expense of the other, and that evidence should guide judgment, not assumptions. The deposition also revealed other oddities, like Blake Lively referring to her penthouse office as Buckingham Palace, highlighting the eccentricities of ultra-wealthy celebrity culture. Meanwhile, the doxing incident prompted letters to the judge and talk of potential sanctions, though by that point the private information had already been exposed, leaving the damage done. Online commentators suggested that these actions were a last-ditch attempt by Lively and Reynolds to psychologically pressure Baldoni before a likely loss in court, a strategy that disregards the safety of families entirely. Amid all this, Baldoni's focus remained on maintaining his family's safety and managing the absurdity of the accusations. The deposition questions about political affiliations and alleged fan bases, like pro-MAGA supporters, were clearly tactics meant to distract and associate him with narratives he doesn't identify with. He calmly corrected misconceptions, even joking about surfing in his abs when asked, showing a grounded approach in the middle of legal chaos. This entire situation underscores not only the high stakes and personal danger involved, but also the lengths some parties are willing to go to manipulate public perception and intimidate opponents. When you've got nothing left, this is the strategy you reach for. You try to smear someone by saying, "Look, bad MAGA people support Baldoni, so he must be bad too." But what does that have to do with whether or not he harassed Blake Lively? Absolutely nothing. It's wild to watch this play out, especially when you look at Baldoni's actual body of work. This is a man who hosted a podcast called Man Enough, built around confronting toxic masculinity and pushing back on the idea that men should suck it up, never cry, and bury their emotions. He's spoken openly about undoing the damage done by older generations who taught boys that showing feelings made them weak. The same environment many of us grew up in, with coaches, relatives, and authority figures mocking vulnerability. Baldoni has spent years advocating for the opposite: therapy, emotional honesty, and not projecting anger and resentment onto women, and somehow all of that is now being twisted and used against him. When confronted with claims that he'd become some kind of MAGA or manosphere figurehead, he laughed it off and explained that his work is fundamentally about helping men unlearn aggression, process emotions, and heal. He even said that if people who disagree with him are reading his books, maybe some good will come of it. That perspective resonated deeply, especially as a parent, because the goal for the next generation should be raising boys who feel safe expressing joy, sadness, fear, and love without shame, not boys pushed into bitterness, isolation, or extremist corners of the internet. What's remarkable is Baldoni's refusal to take the bait, whether that resilience comes from his Baha'i faith, personal growth, or sheer discipline. Because being sued for hundreds of millions of dollars while facing character assassination is the ultimate test of grace. At the same time, depositions revealed allegations that Ryan Reynolds used his power to pressure Baldoni, including claims that Reynolds and Lively threatened their agency, William Morris Endeavor, with pulling their business unless Baldoni released a public statement they had drafted themselves. Given how much money top-tier clients generate for agencies, the leverage in that threat is obvious, and it paints a picture of influence being used to coerce rather than resolve. Baldoni's decision not to issue a statement he didn't believe in may end up being one of the smartest moves he's made, because throughout all of this, the pattern looks less like a search for truth and more like an effort to intimidate, manipulate, and exhaust someone into submission, and this time, it didn't work. Justin Baldoni described the intense pressure and fear he felt during this period, recalling that he was repeatedly contacted by his agency and told a statement had been prepared by Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. He was told, implicitly, that if he didn't comply, the gloves would come off. Baldoni admitted that he felt scared, uncertain, and unprotected, having never faced anything like this before. He was terrified of what Lively and Reynolds might do, especially after being effectively removed from his own movie project he had been working on for 5 years, and, realizing that people he thought were friends were no longer publicly supporting him, it seemed that actions were being taken deliberately to shape public perception against him. Baldoni also noted the unsettling social dynamics of Hollywood, where loyalties shift quickly depending on who has influence. When a more prominent star like Lively instructed people to distance themselves from him, many complied immediately. He described this as a moment of clarity. When you're pursuing your dreams and acting from a place of purpose, support should come naturally, whereas fear and scarcity-driven behavior from others reveals their true motivations. He elaborated on his fear during this period, explaining that he didn't know the full extent of what Lively and Reynolds were capable of. He had already learned that stories were being circulated about him being in a cult or acting predatory, and he feared more lies and manipulations. Articles had even appeared suggesting that Reynolds had to save the film because it was supposedly a disaster, undermining Baldoni's work as director. When he was asked about whether he thought his movie had been taken from him, he confirmed that he feared exactly that, alongside the damage that false narratives could do to his career and reputation. Despite this, Baldoni maintained composure, choosing not to contradict public claims about Reynolds or Lively, even when he knew them to be false. He described passing on messages from his team tactfully, understanding the need to navigate the hostile environment carefully, while also defending the work of the female writer who had devoted years to perfecting the script. The deposition paints a picture of a man facing immense professional and personal pressure, defending his integrity and the safety of his career while under a campaign of manipulation and intimidation. The deposition and surrounding drama just keep getting wilder, and it's clear that flipping narratives was a deliberate tactic, twisting stories that were already circulating to create confusion and pressure. One striking example involves Jennifer Abel, who had previously spoken negatively about Baldoni. When asked if he had ever addressed it with her, Baldoni explained that she called him one morning in tears, apologizing for texts that had been made public. She admitted she had been upset over a work-related issue and regretted what she said. Baldoni in turn showed remarkable composure, saying he wouldn't hold it against her. That kind of awareness and patience is consistent with how he navigates conflict. He recognizes that people may say things in frustration, but that doesn't define their character or his response. This approach extends to his professional life. Baldoni has faced accusations of verbal abuse on other film sets, but when the deposition evidence is examined, it shows he was simply asserting authority as the director, discussing budgetary or logistical matters without raising his voice. Yet, opponents twisted those moments to paint him as abusive, demonstrating how easily public perception can be manipulated and how damaging false narratives can be, especially when powerful figures are involved. It's concerning that terms like abuser are thrown around in ways that diminish space for actual victims of domestic violence and harassment. The bigger picture shows a man trying to run his project with integrity, facing immense pressure from all sides, and yet remaining grounded. For anyone on Blake Lively's side, a trial would likely be unflattering. And this is just the beginning of the revelations we're seeing. Baldoni's composure, clarity, and ability to separate legitimate criticism from manipulative attacks stand out as a testament to his character. This is a case that will continue to unfold, and we'll keep following it closely. For now, we pause, but there's much more celebrity and political news to cover, so stick around for the afternoon update. It's been a wild week, and the story is far from over. I'm Dave, and this is The Rush. Dave, and this is The Rush.